The worst decision of my life was getting involved with a successful man. At first it felt like a dream. He had that irresistible charm, the confidence we all admire, and of course the glamour of a stable and prosperous life. But the truth behind this fairy tale turned out to be far from what I had imagined. It all started with small absences, cancelled dates, last-minute meetings, unexpected trips. In the beginning I brushed it off, thinking it was part of the deal. After all, he was building our future, right? But over time these absences became constant. He was physically present but emotionally distant. It felt like his work was the invisible mistress in our relationship, one he would never leave. Have you ever tried talking to someone who only responds out of obligation? Or felt the frustration of pouring your heart out to someone whose mind is clearly elsewhere? That's how it was. He would tell me he loved me, that he was doing all this for us, but how could I believe that when his actions said otherwise? And then came the regret. I realized that, in trying to fit into his world, I had abandoned my own. I distanced myself from friends, gave up on projects that brought me joy, and even lost a part of who I was. All of this just to try and fit into a life that, in reality, had no room for me. I was like a spectator in the movie of his life, a life full of meetings, contracts, and trips to places I couldn't even pronounce. You know what hurts the most? It's not just the loneliness of being with someone who's never really there. It's the contrast. To everyone else he was the perfect man, kind, successful, attentive. But at home he was cold, distant, almost like a stranger. And I was stuck in this cycle, trying to justify his absences, convincing myself that this was normal, that it was just part of the deal. I fooled myself into thinking that success and stability were everything. But success on one side and abandonment on the other creates an unfair equation. Because who can live in a relationship like that? Who can call something a life together when it feels more like a contract with only one clause: wait while he conquers the world? Now, looking back, I realize the mistake wasn't just getting involved with someone like that. The mistake was believing I could be happy with someone who, deep down, never had room in his life for me. So, if you're thinking that dating or marrying a successful man is the pinnacle of achievement, let me tell you, think twice. Not all that glitters is worth the price of loneliness.
This is why many women can't hold on to successful men, rich men, or powerful bosses. The reason is simple: their emotional strength and capabilities aren't enough, but their desire and ambition are huge. Almost all women are attracted to successful, wealthy, and skilled men, but these men are not easy to deal with. They are always going to admire and desire what they don't have. This kind of man is difficult to keep, especially if your wealth and skills are lower than his. Why is he hard to deal with? Because he's already immersed in the rules of society and knows how to navigate relationships of interest and dynamics between people with intelligence. So, in relationships, he possesses much more resources and strategies than you. Most of his emotional value is directed toward himself and his career. This type of man is usually selfish, shrewd, and focused on his own interests. Many women end up becoming one-way providers, feeling that, because of his good conditions, they need to latch onto him. They end up using his resources, his connections, what he has to offer, without realizing that, for these men, their role is to serve him. You can't fill his emotional void, and at the same time, you don't have the material capacity to match his level. When we look at social relationships and human dynamics, we need to abandon dependence and neediness and adopt a mindset of self-sufficiency. We need to become stronger, develop our abilities and skills, and achieve results through hard work. Only then can we attract someone who matches our experiences, vision, and accomplishments. In short, if you want to gain something from someone, you need to walk a long path first. You need to read a lot, gain experience, and have enough life experiences to attract someone who is compatible with you. Otherwise, you will never get what you want. Women, when someone approaches you, they are already evaluating your value, and the tendency is that after high expectations, the relationship will decline. This is why many women can't hold on to successful, rich, or powerful men, because their emotional strength and capabilities are insufficient, but their desire and ambition are immense. In short, when you're not strong, all your attempts at dependence, demands, and neediness will be ineffective because people won't give you what you want. The world is very strict when it comes to measuring values and exchanging rights. Many women think that just by being beautiful, they will conquer everything, but that isn't enough to understand these dynamics.
I made one of the biggest mistakes that 99% of women end up making. He was the type of man who excelled at work, always decisive, with success that seemed unbeatable. But when it came to relationships, he was the complete opposite. Distant, emotionally unavailable, and honestly, a real bad boy. At first, I thought he was the man of my dreams, until I realized he was driven by something much deeper, fear. He was taught, from a young age, that he would only be accepted if he was the best. His parents always compared him to others, creating a constant insecurity within him. And it was this fear, this terror of failing, that led him to success. He never dared to fail, never wanted to fall behind anyone. This, deep down, made him unbeatable at work, but emotionally distant and incapable of being vulnerable in the relationship. He became a true emotional vampire. He didn't know how to comfort me, how to be affectionate, and worst of all, he didn't care about rejecting other women who came his way. That's when I realized, his aura of success was a facade built by fear. He was always running to be perfect so he wouldn't be left behind, but that made him fail as a man, as a partner. Ladies, don't be fooled by this type of man. They may be amazing at work, but when it comes to love, they just don't know how to give. Don't waste your time chasing a dream that will only leave you heartbroken in the end. Look for someone who is driven by passion, love, and respect, not fear.
Let's dive deeper into this reality. Marrying a man entirely focused on his career might feel like securing a dream lifestyle, but it comes with compromises that many aren't prepared to face. The harsh truth is, these men don't live in the same emotional world as most of us. They thrive on results, deadlines, and constant progress, and their relationships often become another extension of their efficiency-driven mindset. Think about this. When you try to express your feelings or share your day, his mind is elsewhere, on the next deal, the next big opportunity, or how to maintain his status. Your emotional needs become secondary, not out of malice, but because his priorities are fundamentally different. And this isn't a phase, it's a lifelong pattern. You might think, I can be supportive. I can adapt. But support in his eyes doesn't mean late-night talks or shared dreams. It means you managing everything else while he chases success. Your role becomes one of quiet efficiency, handling the home, organizing social obligations, and never causing distractions. And if you ever fail to meet those expectations, it's not just a disappointment, it's seen as a liability. What's even more unsettling is how easily replaceable you can become in this dynamic. In his world, where connections and power are currency, temptations are everywhere. Younger, more agreeable women who don't demand time or attention, but are eager to bask in his success, will always be within reach. And here's the kicker, he doesn't even need to be actively looking. The allure of wealth and status ensures these options are always available. Over time, you'll start questioning yourself. Why aren't you enough? Why does your love feel like a burden rather than a gift? And the hardest truth to face is that it's not about you. It's about the life he's chosen. A life where achievements matter more than connections, and where relationships are meant to serve his goals, not nourish his soul. Imagine the toll this takes on you. You're sitting alone at the dinner table, staring at your untouched plate, while he's out at yet another business meeting. The weekends you hoped to spend together are now just opportunities for him to network. The vacations are photo ops more than bonding experiences. And when you finally voice your frustration, you're met with a cold, calculated response. I'm doing this for us. But is he really? Or is it just for him? And let's not forget the double standard. While he expects unwavering support and silence about your discontent, any perceived failure on your part, be it a messy home, a small argument, or even a moment of emotional vulnerability, could become the excuse he needs to justify moving on. Because in his mind, there's always something, or someone, better. So, where does that leave you? Trapped in a life that looks perfect on the outside, but feels empty on the inside. Surrounded by luxury yet starved of intimacy. Trying to convince yourself that the trade-offs are worth it while deep down, you know they aren't. This isn't to say all ambitious men are incapable of love, but when career and success are the sole focus, the emotional sacrifices are real. And unless you're prepared to mold your life entirely around their vision, you'll find yourself constantly yearning for a connection that was never truly on the table. Before stepping into a relationship like this, ask yourself one thing. Do you want a partner, or do you want to play a role in someone else's story? Because if it's the latter, you might find yourself lost in a life that isn't truly yours.
他变了，是你变了。很多来找我的姑娘情感曲线都是低开高。
I know that many men become increasingly distant, and the truth is that it's not because they've changed, it's because I have. Throughout my life, I've always been between the highs and lows of society, trying to adapt, trying to be enough. I noticed that, at first, men would get interested in me, but soon after, they would pull away, as if something had changed. The truth is that, even though I'm ambitious and driven, I've never been able to stay stable with a successful man. When they reach a certain level, they become untouchable, and soon start looking for something new. I remember when I started dating a successful man. At first, he treated me like I was the only one, like everything was perfect. But soon, I started getting more involved, depending on him more, and that's when everything began to change. What I didn't realize is that, while I was giving more of myself, he started distancing himself, becoming colder. I tried to adjust, tried to be the ideal woman, but the truth is that my behavior wasn't the same anymore. I was so eager to please him, to stay by his side, that I lost my essence. Successful men, especially those who've reached a higher level, don't look for women who just follow them. They want something more, something that challenges them, something that makes them feel they can still conquer something new. I realized that, no matter how ambitious I was, no matter how many goals I had, I was never truly able to keep up with them. I thought if I was more submissive, more dedicated, he would stay. But over time, I saw that this was never enough. What truly matters to them goes beyond what I had to offer at that moment. I remember once he told me, "You're not the woman I fell in love with." And that's when I realized that the mistake wasn't with him, but with me. I had changed. I had lost my confidence, my principles. I was so focused on pleasing him that I forgot to take care of myself. I allowed myself to be dominated by insecurity, and that pushed him further away. The big truth is that when a man reaches a certain level of success, he becomes a different person, harder to reach. He no longer has the same desire to conquer what's around him, but to seek something new, something that keeps him excited and challenged. No matter how ambitious or hardworking I was, in the end, I was always left behind. I was no longer the woman he fell in love with, because I wasn't able to maintain my own identity, to grow and evolve in the same way he did. Now, looking back, I realize that the key to truly keeping up with a successful man is not losing yourself in pursuit of him. It's not about becoming someone who just follows him, but rather someone who grows alongside him. I've learned that to attract and keep a successful man by my side, I need to be someone he respects, someone with her own goals, someone who never stops growing and developing. I can't forget myself in the midst of a relationship, and that's what I've learned the hard way.
Oh, you know why older single men and women have such difficulty finding someone? Because they really don't find each other attractive. For example, if there's a man around 35 years old with an average appearance and height, and he always talks about his income, saying he earns over 300,000 or 200,000, but is still single, you start wondering, how is this possible? Why is he single? Is there some hidden problem? Similarly, they don't find women in this age range attractive either. They think, she's good-looking, has a decent income, but if she's single, it must be because of a difficult personality or maybe her money isn't coming from legitimate sources. It really is like that. So, I've noticed that older men tend to prefer women in their 20s, and older women also prefer men in their 20s. Everyone is after the same resources in that age group. In reality, they are normal people, really. But they simply don't find each other attractive. They see youth as something normal. For instance, when an older woman approaches a younger man, she thinks, he has potential, that's fine. The same happens with older men who, when encountering a 30-year-old woman, tend to judge her through a biased lens. That's why my suggestion is that older men and women look for younger partners, like brothers or sisters. This kind of relationship has real potential to become something very strong.
So, after hearing all these testimonies, it's hard not to think, do women who fell for successful men really know what they were looking for? Or maybe, deep down, were they just chasing a fantasy that seemed more attractive than the reality? The truth is, no matter how much these men have everything the world values, material possessions, status, fame, What they often lack is something much simpler and more fundamental: humanity. They end up becoming the protagonist of a success story where, many times, the plot leaves no room for the person by their side, and this is an invisible trap. It's easy to be dazzled by the shine of a man who seems to have everything anyone could wish for. But no matter how perfect his life seems, what truly matters is what he has to offer beyond that. Is he willing to invest time, energy, and emotion into the relationship? Or, in the end, does he just want someone by his side to show off, a secondary character in his own success story? What's at stake here isn't just what he has, but how he chooses to share what he has, and often, that isn't enough to build something deep and meaningful with another person. The lesson is clear. The shine of a successful man can be dazzling, but often, it's not a reflection of someone emotionally available. What he seeks might actually be proof of himself, a need to reaffirm his worth and ability, rather than building a true partnership. And the question that remains is, what is really worth it? Being with someone who can show you the world, but leaves you alone most of the time, or being with someone who understands you, values your company, and makes you feel like an important part of his life? I know the decision isn't simple. We all have dreams and desires, and the idea of being with someone who has it all is extremely tempting. After all, who doesn't want a life full of luxury, travel, and the appearance of success? But when you really stop and think, is it worth it to be just a background character in the life of someone so focused on their own script, their own narrative, that they end up leaving you aside? In the end, true happiness and fulfillment come from genuine connection, camaraderie, and mutual respect, not from a relationship that revolves around one person's success. So, next time the fantasy of being with a successful man feels irresistible, remember, what matters isn't how much he can show you, but how much he's willing to build with you to share life in a real and present way. Don't be fooled by the facade, because a healthy and lasting relationship goes far beyond material possessions. It starts with the ability to be together, to share moments, to understand both the struggles and the victories together. And in the end, that's what makes the difference. What's your opinion on this dilemma? If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. I'll see you in the next video.